Welcome to Dark Fears. Tonight, we delve into the shadows.
The old curiosity shop sat quietly at the end of a forgotten street, hidden behind a faded green awning and dusty glass windows. It wasn't the kind of place people visited on purpose. It was the kind of place people stumbled into when they were lost or searching for something they couldn't quite name. Elena, a quiet artist with restless hands, found herself there on a rainy evening. She wasn't searching for anything in particular, just wandering through the damp streets after another long day of working on illustrations that never seemed good enough. Something about the crooked sign, antiques and oddities, drew her inside. The air was thick with dust and the smell of old wood. Tall shelves loomed over her, packed with forgotten relics, clocks that no longer ticked, cracked mirrors, rusted tools, and porcelain figurines with faded paint. At the back of the shop, behind a cracked glass case, something caught her eye. It was a doll, porcelain skin pale as death, lips faded to a dull rose, hair tangled in brittle curls. Its glass eyes were open wide, too wide, unblinking, staring as though it had been waiting for someone. The doll wore a faded blue dress with delicate lace, though the edges were torn and stained with age. Elena leaned closer, and for a moment, she swore the doll's eyes flickered toward her. She blinked, shook her head, and laughed under her breath. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with cloudy spectacles, appeared at her side. His voice was low and scratchy. "You've got a good eye," he said, peering at the doll. "This one's special." Something in his tone unsettled her, but she forced a smile. "How much?" He named a price so low she almost felt guilty. Almost. Within minutes, the doll was wrapped in old newspaper and tucked under her arm as she stepped back into the rain. Elena placed the doll on her living room shelf, next to her sketchbooks and jars of brushes. It sat there silently, hands folded neatly in its lap, eyes open and glassy. For the first few days, it seemed harmless enough. But then, strange things began to happen. One night, as Elena worked late at her desk, she thought she heard the faint scrape of porcelain against wood. She turned, expecting to see the doll on the shelf. It was still there, except it wasn't facing forward anymore. Its head was tilted ever so slightly, as if it were watching her draw. Elena frowned, shook her head, and went back to work. The next morning, she found the doll sitting on the edge of her desk, its unblinking eyes fixed on her half-finished sketch. She lived alone. No one could have moved it. Her stomach tightened. She picked it up carefully and returned it to the shelf. But each night, no matter where she placed it, the doll always seemed to move closer. Sleep became difficult. Elena would wake in the middle of the night to the sense of being watched. Once she rolled over in bed and froze. The doll was sitting upright in the chair by her window, moonlight glinting off its glassy eyes. She sat up, heart hammering. The chair was across the room. She would have heard it move. Trembling, she carried the doll back to the shelf, trying not to look into its lifeless stare. The next day, she locked it in a closet. That night, scratching sounds woke her. Slow, deliberate scratches from the closet door. She lay in bed, frozen, listening as the sound grew louder, more insistent. Then came the faint click of the door latch. The closet door creaked open. Two porcelain eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Elena screamed. She leapt from her bed, grabbed the doll, and hurled it across the room. It struck the wall with a hollow crack and fell limp to the floor. Her breath came in sharp gasps. For a long time, she stared at it lying there, motionless, just a doll again. In the morning, she told herself it had all been a dream. Stress, exhaustion, nothing more. She placed the doll back in the closet, shut the door, and tried to forget. But forgetting proved impossible. Days later, Elena opened her sketchbook and froze. Her latest page wasn't of landscapes or characters, it was of the doll. A perfect drawing of it sitting on her desk, though she had no memory of drawing it. She flipped through the pages. More sketches. The doll in different positions, standing in her hallway, sitting on her bed, staring from the corner of her kitchen. The final drawing made her blood run cold. It was of herself lying in bed, her eyes wide open like glass, unblinking. Her hands shook. She slammed the sketchbook shut and shoved it into a drawer. But the next morning, the sketchbook was open on her desk again, on the same page. The drawing seemed darker now, as though someone had gone over the lines in heavy charcoal. The eyes in the drawing glowed faintly, like they were alive. The breaking point. Elena couldn't take it anymore. She decided to destroy the doll. She carried it to the old furnace in the basement of her building, her hands trembling the whole way. She tossed it inside and struck a match. Flames roared to life, crackling and spitting sparks. The porcelain skin began to blacken, the dress catching fire. For a moment she felt relief. Then came the sound. A high, piercing scream, like porcelain shattering, echoed from the furnace. The doll's eyes glowed bright red through the flames, wide open, unblinking. Elena staggered back, heart pounding. The fire sputtered and died as if snuffed out by invisible hands. The doll tumbled from the furnace onto the floor, its dress untouched, its eyes still staring. She ran. That night, Elena locked her apartment door, shoved furniture against it, and sat in the corner clutching a kitchen knife. Her phone was dead, though she had charged it hours earlier. The lights flickered, then went out, plunging the room into darkness. In the silence, she heard it, the soft click of porcelain footsteps on the wooden floor. Closer, closer. Her breathing grew ragged. She raised the knife, but her hands shook so badly she could hardly hold it. The shadow shifted. The doll emerged from the darkness, standing on the floor, head tilted. Its glass eyes gleamed in the faint moonlight. Elena screamed and lunged, slamming the knife down. But when she looked, there was nothing. The doll was gone. Her chest heaved. She stumbled to her desk, desperate to turn on a lamp. That's when she saw the sketchbook lying open. It was the final page again. Only now the drawing was different. It wasn't just a sketch of her lying in bed. It was her, slumped at the desk, knife in hand, wide glassy eyes staring forward. She froze. Slowly her reflection in the darkened window shifted, not her own face, but the doll's, staring back at her with a faint smile. And then everything went black. When neighbors reported strange noises days later, the police entered Elena's apartment. They found her desk neatly arranged, sketchbooks stacked, brushes in their jars. On the shelf sat the porcelain doll in its faded blue dress, hands folded neatly in its lap. Next to it was Elena's final sketchbook, left open. The last drawing was of a faceless officer standing in the apartment doorway, just as the police now stood, staring at the book in silence. The doll's eyes glimmered faintly, as though it had been waiting.